Well, hello, White Sox fans, and welcome to another episode of the FutureSox podcast. My name is Ian Eskridge. Joining me this evening is James Fox. How are you, James?
Hello, sir. What's going on?
Oh, just watching some
Yeah,
low offense baseball and getting ready to talk some draft with you.
I know we have nothing to discuss. I feel like I like the draft happened and then I left town. So
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff to go in with the bonus. I also want to talk about some of these guys that got drafted and just what your overall thoughts are on the draft, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then we had the 3-game series in the minors, which the Barons threw a combined no hitter, which was a lot of fun to watch. So, how was vacation? Was it good?
yeah, other than like going to Philly, it was fine. So yeah, so we stayed in Bethlehem because that's where my wife's like aunt and uncle live. So then it was like an easy commute like to Philly or whatever. um, but yeah, like I didn't realize the pigs were there like as close as they were. So that like might have been something I planned on doing had I realized, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is right here. So yeah, I could have went and saw Mick Abel pitch possibly.
Yeah, they have a real interesting park too.
Mm.
Like their bullpen out in left field it's just like the way they got it set up is kind of interesting. It looks like a pretty nice park. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I saw you running up the steps at over there in
Yeah.
Philly and doing your Rocky impression. That was
Yeah.
fun
So
stuff.
the funny thing is, like, obviously, like I'm 38 years old, not in terrible shape, but I mean, it's really not that hard. Like people think, like, oh, it's the Rockies. That like obviously it was a fictional character, and it was like after he did an entire workout. So that's what it was like his. Oh yeah, here I'm at the top. But like, if you go and just do the steps, like it's really not that bad. You'd like do it and have some water, and you'd be fine. Like,
Yeah, I was hoping to get some videos of you punching sides of beef, but alas, I
yeah,
didn't get that.
no, yeah.
So the White Sox, what we have 17 of 20, is that right? That are signed
Yeah,
so far.
it's technically 21 picks, but Myles Bailey's not signing. So yes, 17 of their 20 are signed. Their first two, and then their fourth pick. So Hagen Smith not. I mean, they might be signed, but we just don't have bonus amounts. Caleb Bonnemer and Nick McLain, Scott Boras client. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's last and he's getting whatever's like remaining, basically.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. So after you've had a little while to process this, I want to start getting into these picks here. How do you feel about the White Sox overall first pick, Hagen Smith?
So I'm totally fine with Hagen Smith. I don't know. I don't want to say that I feel stupid or like duped or whatever. I feel like we kind of like didn't take this, I guess, like possibility that seriously, but like nobody did, right? Everybody kind of said they wanted to go bat, and I've heard since that like Mike Shirley still wanted to go bat. So like whatever that means, right? Like to me, it very clearly said like on draft night Hagen Smith was their top rated player of their like group, and they took him. I mentioned to you off air, I'd like your opinion on it now. Just there's like video floating around of Chris Getz like with Mike Shirley, and Chris Getz like makes a comment where he says something like, "We want him. This is what we're doing. Take him." Right, which to me leads me to think that Mike Shirley was willing to hunt a deal at 5, whether that's Cags or Weatherholt or Griffin, like, hey, we could draft one of these other guys, save a little bit of money and spread money throughout. And Chris Getz is like, look, like if Hagen Smith's our top guy, take him, which tells me that it's 7.7 million, maybe 8. I don't know. I don't know how much it is, but like they have 11.8 million left for 3 players. So it's not super far under. But I do think Hagen Smith was their top player that was like on the board at the time, because if he wasn't, like I think they would have taken, like if Jack Caglione was higher ranked than Hagen Smith, I think they would have taken him. I don't know what would have stopped them from taking their top rated guy. So I feel like they did that.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought as well. And, if whenever I was asked about how I felt about Hagen Smith, I brought up our conversation with Jim Callis months ago, where he asked us who we would want in the draft at the time. And both of us said Hagen Smith because he's a left-handed pitcher and he's just flat out nasty. And there are some concerns there that I have. More or less with him, perceived as a two-pitch pitcher. I mean, he throws 50% fastballs and 49% sliders and then 1% changeups. But my thinking here is, oh yeah, look at that. Brooks Baldwin just gets his first RBI. That is phenomenal. Um, so I if your stuff's that nasty, you don't have to showcase that pitch very often. It's kind of just like a show me pitch just to keep guys off of a pitch. And his tunneling's so good from that weird arm slot that I just I don't know. Obviously, we know that Bannister is just chomping at the bit to get at this guy to be able to refine what he does, possibly add some, either some velocity or some movement to that slider a little bit. He's already got 17 inches of vertical break and 13 inches of, arm side break on his fastball, which is, real good. And then he's got, 42% whiff and 38% whiff in zone with his fastball, which is 20% above the average, So I like the pick. I like the pick earlier. I just, after us going through and talking about it for months, I convinced myself that they were going to go with a bat because we know that they needed a bat.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I think it comes down to they had somebody that was a hitter that was ranked as the number one hitter, and then they had a number one pitcher that they had that was going to be available, and that's what they decided to do, was to take the left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, and like whatever his price is, right? I don't know what it is yet. We don't know. They decided that Hagen Smith at his bonus number was a better option for them than whoever their top hitter on the board was at that bonus number, right? Yep. So we see what Weatherholt signed for. I think it was like 6.9. There's no reason to assume that you couldn't split the difference to get him at your spot, which would have been like 7.2, 7.3, something like that. We don't have the CAGS bonus information from KC, but I do know that Kansas City and St. Louis were both like bidding on Hagen Smith. And that's how some of this works. It's not just like take the top guy on your board. Like the White Sox were in discussions like with the agent for Charlie Condon, trying to float him to 5. And he got a record bonus of $9.25 million from Colorado. Now I'm sure the White Sox weren't going that much, right? But no. Maybe they would have went to 8.3, 8.4 on. I don't know. But I know that they tried. I also know with Travis Bazzana, like if he doesn't take $8.9 million to go number one, he's fallen to the White Sox at 5. Now, would the White Sox have taken Bazzana over Hagen Smith? I don't have that answer. I don't know that. But I know that he would have been on the board for him because Oakland was taking Kurtz. Oakland cut a deal with Kurtz for $1.3 million under, $7 million, and Bazzana would have fallen to 5. So there was all sorts of jockeying for position in that top 5. We kind of talked about that night, the agency that represents Burns and Condon. He made 2 deals for $9.25 million, right? So cuts 2 deals, both of them broke the record at 2 and 3 with Burns and Condon. So that was super interesting. Hagen Smith is also 20 years old, so really young still. Mike Shirley was just effusive with praise, obviously, on the Zoom. And look, like he was about Jacob Gonzalez too. Like he's always going to be like about the guy that they take, right? But he talked about who was it, Oregon State that he shut down? Like, and Shirley was there that night, and he said, he would have beat the Yankees that night. Like he just, it's just. I know there's a lot of people that have the 2-pitch concern. I mean, I don't think anybody should be concerned that he's not going to get a 3rd pitch, like with the White Sox. And like Shirley alluded to it on the conference call that night when James Fegan asked a question about, if Hagen was a candidate for the, the cutter that Crochet and Schultz throw, and Shirley was just like smirking, laughing the whole time. Like, like Brian Bannister's a big part of this thing. That's one of the things I learned on those Zoom calls, is that Brian Bannister claims that, he's not really a part of this process. He's not out scouting people, but he said kind of like, hey, like, who are the guys you like? Bring them to me and I'll watch them. And yeah, like, I don't think they're taking anybody that Brian Bannister like isn't a fan of. They took 2 low slot lefties with 2 of their first 4 picks. They have a history of developing these types of players. So that's the other thing you and I talked about that night. Like, I have a lot more confidence that Hagen Smith will be really good on the White Sox than I do Connor Griffin will be, or Jack Caglione will be. Yeah. There's just stuff that I am not confident in the White Sox fixing. And with Hagen, it's just kind of going to be like, okay, kid, like go to Double A and add a cutter, and like we'll see how quickly we want to get you to the majors. So, but yeah, I mean, I think there's other draft takeaways and stuff that we can get into, but Hagen Smith is going to be one of the top lefty prospect starters like in the minors, like pretty instantly, and the White Sox have 2 of them, in Schultz and him.
So question here from Wealth Waldo. With Thorpe, Cannon, Schultz, Hagen Smith, and the rest, is the pitching in the Sox farm system the best in baseball?
I'd have to look, but probably. I mean, I don't know how anybody, I mean, nobody's deeper, right? Like, I guess like Philly has an argument, like if Painter were pitching, like Mick Abel's like been bad, but he's still pretty good. Miami, both of the prep guys they took last year are moving together. They both look awesome. But look, it's not like their 5th or 6th best pitching prospect isn't Mason Adams.
Nope,
I mean,
not even close.
Like that's what I mean. Like the White Sox depth right now, yeah, it probably is the best pitching system in baseball, I would imagine. And obviously they have a lot of work to do on the positional side, but they have the best pitching system in baseball probably right now.
The Tigers do have Job Clutch, but pretty soon they might not have Tarek Skubal. So
there's a lot of chatter about that.
Sure is. I thought it was awfully weird. He's awfully good.
But here's the thing again, right? Like this is a new front office that keeps drafting high school players. Like, can they, or are they willing to sign Tarek Skubal? Because if they're not, this is maybe, I think Skubal might actually be the trade that Mike Elias makes. Like, he might actually do that one. That might be the one that breaks up the Norfolk Tides.
Yep, I could see that.
So yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he's being talked about a lot, obviously, and like, there's not a ton of pitching out there. I mean, it's him, Crochet. You can go get Jamison Tyon if you want, but it's just kind of, I don't know. So what do you think? Like, overall, I mean, I was confused, obviously, like as the draft was happening, because in my mind, like the bonuses just didn't add up. So with the White Sox overage, they had $15.3 million to spend. A couple things that I didn't really account for were the college picks in 3, 4, 5, like being as significant as they are. Like, those are big pieces to this draft class that the White Sox really like, and they paid for them. So we can disagree with that, and that's fine. But like that, that's like the truth at this point. The other thing was picks 6 through 10 weren't like total punt picks. Like I thought a lot of those guys were going to be like 25K, and they're not, and we'll get into all those. And then day 3, there were only 2 signings that were like over slot. But as I talk to more people like Joe Doyle and other people that we've talked to, and just people that kind of follow along here, and I'm like, man, this is like a little bit underwhelming. The response is always like, everyone's draft is underwhelming because this draft is terrible.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a scout draft, I would say. Like, the White Sox identified all these players that they wanted to add to their system, and they figured out a way to like fit them all into their bonus pool. And look, I think a lot of it depends on the pick at 43, Caleb Bonnemer. He's going to take a while. He's a high schooler. They think he's like a premium high schooler. I think they're about to pay him like close to first round money. So, like he had a strong commitment to school. Most people a week before the draft thought he was going to school. And that bonus could be close to $3 million, because I don't know where I don't know what is otherwise. So we should know here at any point, basically. But yeah,
We
that's
have what?
like a
How
premium.
much left?
So they have 11.8
11?
total, and 7.7 of that is the slot for Hagen. I would imagine it close to 1 million is Nick McLain. And yeah, like that's, yeah. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So, uh, I was on all 3 Zoom calls. Like we can get into that. It seems like relief pitching and the outfield was a priority. Obviously, like they added a lot of college guys, but like everybody adds a lot of college guys because you can't afford high school players. Mike
Yeah,
Shirley was very agitated on the Zoom call about NIL, and look, I get where he's coming from, but I'm also like big on like player empowerment, and like these guys should get paid. Now, there is a fine line between, like we talk about it with George Wolcott all the time, right? Like and Joe Doyle talked about it, and others did too. Like Major League Baseball is not going to wait for some of these kids. Like, so like if you want to take 75K and go play college baseball like another year, like that's fine. But like when you're 23 and you're getting $10,000 in the draft, like that's like the repercussions of it. And maybe you're fine with that. And that's totally cool. Right. But, some guys I feel like should probably get in and start their career sooner. We just saw like Andrew Dukanich was a big time right-handed pitcher out of Indiana that Mike Shirley loved. And he wanted to go to Vandy, and he went to Vandy, and he turned down like $3 million out of high school. And he just signed with the Cardinals for $300K after 2 terrible years at Vandy. And there's, look, it's not just Andrew Dukanich. There's 25 of those guys where like that happens,
at least.
so
At least.
yeah. So it's just, and we'll see, like baseball players aren't making a ton in NIL, but like if day 3, all they can give you is 150K, well, some of them might get more than that to go somewhere and play, So it is
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, if you
muddying. It's
get
kind of muddying the waters a little bit.
yeah, I mean, if you get like, I don't know, $50,000-$60,000 NIL money every year, you come out after 3 years and then you get, $10,000, you're still ahead by, I don't
Yeah.
know, $40,000 or something. So, and you get to have the experience of being in college, which,
Yeah.
some people want to do college, and if you're getting paid to do it
Yeah.
instead of, putting yourself in $200,000 worth
Yeah.
of debt, it makes sense.
Well, it's one of the issues with like a guy like Pierce George, who the Sox took in round 13 out of Bama. He was number 213 on Baseball America, definite reliever, doesn't throw strikes, but he has like premium stuff, right? So I've heard from some like, oh, like he couldn't even pitch at Alabama. Like, why would they pay him, right? And it's like, well, because Alabama's coaches and White Sox like player development staff have 2 totally different agendas. Like Alabama's coaches need to win, so they can't pitch Pierce George. But if Pierce George is throwing high 90s with a nasty slider and like looks like a potential like 8th inning guy, like he could be terrible in Kannapolis, and he's going to pitch again like the next day or 2 days later because winning baseball games like isn't the most important thing. Like as much as like we like watching the minor league teams win, it's like development's number 1. So that's like another factor in this, right? Like somebody might throw you 50K to go pitch in college, in a 4th year or whatever. But if you're not getting the job done, like a coach like has no incentive to develop you for the pros, whereas it's just 2 totally different things. So
Yeah, which that's a whole other can of worms, where the major league teams are cutting players and cutting development, systems that they've built over years and years and years, and expecting the college coaches to develop these guys. And now college coaches with the portal, now they're not interested in developing either. They just want the best talent available, and that's it. If you can't do the job,
and there's going to be kids that get lost in the cracks because of it, like 100%,
Yep.
right? So, and obviously, like we're going to get into the rest of the picks, but following, you've probably done more of this than I have, and it's never good like seeing a bunch of guys that you watch every night get released. But I mean, look, the White Sox are about to add 27, 28 guys. Rookie ball's over next week. Like a lot of these guys are going to go to Canny, and a lot of them belong in Canny.
Yeah.
But that means like there's some players that are going to get released. Like these rosters are going to get shuffled here. maybe some of these pitchers get shut down and we don't see them, whatever, right? But
Yeah,
yeah,
you can do
there's
that
gonna
with
be
the
there's
you can
gonna
do
be a
that
lot
with
of movement here
pitchers.
soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, with
so,
the glut of outfielders that they brought in, a
well, like
couple of guys are
Bonham,
definitely going to go.
well, and Bonham and what Larson, like we're not going to see them. They're just going to go hang out in Arizona, whatever. But I mean, Hagen, I would imagine we'll see, and all three of the early college guys, McLain, Sauke, and Antonassi, should all be in Kannapolis, like for the second half playoff run. You would think.
I'm going to bring up some of these comments here. So Trey says, I'm mentally preparing myself for the Orioles going all in on Scooble and then Getz settling on outfield Zach Collins. I'll just always call him that because
wasn't that
I don't want him.
So that was so funny. Like, was it Nightingale that said like, oh, now the Yankees are willing to include him? Well, I would freaking hope so. Like, he sucks. Like, they should include
not
him.
good. Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, the same
Got a
thing.
Long loopy
like,
swing.
The same things that people are worried about with George Wolkow in Kannapolis as an 18-year-old.
As an 18-year-old, yeah.
Like, Spencer Jones is like worse in Double-A as a 22-year-old college pick.
Yep.
And like people like Aaron Judge, my ass. Like, stop. Like, just stop. Like, if the Sox want to gamble on Spencer Jones and he's like part of that package and you like the other parts of it, fine. But like, I don't want, it's not going to be like, at least I hope not, Spencer Jones and filler for Garrett Crochet. They can top that.
Yeah, I don't. I've never gotten the Spencer Jones hype, and and like the thing is that after we've had these conversations earlier in the year, when we were talking about trading and trying to get Spencer Jones for Dylan Cease, and everybody on the Yankee side was like, "Oh, no way, you guys are ridiculous." After I said that, then like I felt like the national media kind of picked up some steam with the Spencer Jones thing, and his value just kept on creeping up and up and up. And he has done, okay, so he's hit some home runs. Cool. He's also hitting like 223. So
yeah, but the Yankees told all those media guys that Spencer Jones is awesome, so he must be awesome.
It's true. Where was the other one? If 2 or 4 don't sign, can they sign 20? Myles Bailey?
No,
there's no shot.
No, so I mean, so the issue with that is like look at 2. Like, even if, let's say they're giving Caleb Bonham $2.8 million, that's like whatever, and he decides to not sign. Well, their slot is 2.2, so they're going to lose the 43rd pick and the $2.2 million slot value that comes with it. They can't use that. But they could use whatever like extra funds they had committed to that. So in my scenario, it's $600K. So you could have $600K, that pick was kind of weird. I mean, like he said it was insurance, but I think it's mostly just hey kid, we really like you. We're going to keep following you at Florida State. Maybe we'll pick you in 2 years type thing, And they had mentioned that he was a guy that they would have liked to have add. They had the money to add him. So
I mean, his bat speed is
ridiculous. Like, that's one potential direction that they could have gone. So they like these college guys they took better, and it is what it is, and we can judge them on that. But yeah, that was one of the things. Yeah, no, I had Corona with dinner because we had fajitas, but I'm drinking pop now because I'm tired. So yeah. I have 2 young children. I'm always tired.
Yeah. I remember the time of having a toddler running around the house. That is not an easy time.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. So the Philly airport was fun for a couple hours. So,
so Caleb Bonham, any thoughts on him in general that you have not expressed up to this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, the White Sox think he's like one of these premium high school types in like a bad high school class. He's like probably the best prep player in Michigan. He had a really bad spring, but he was awesome on the showcase circuit against like really good players, which is what I kind of like. He's had a lot of wood bat success. I'm not sure he's a shortstop, but I can't say that I've watched him a ton. It might be third, it might be second. But he is an athlete, though. This isn't like a West Cath, like maybe destined for first, like pick, So yeah, he's pretty exciting. I mean, I don't know if he starts like next year in rookie ball and then maybe we see him in Canny, like, like Wolkow, or if he's I don't know. I know like they're pretty excited about him. I know there's people that thought he was destined for school because he just like wasn't willing to sign. And then all of a sudden, like the White Sox had to deal with him. He was on their area codes team. I'm actually pretty high. I really like Blake Larson. He was awesome this spring. And, he's just like coming into this pitching infrastructure now that of the White Sox. And he like was fairly cheap. I mean, 1.4 million for him is like not too bad. So the thing with Bonnemer is like Bonnemer has to be really good because of the amount of money that they're about to spend on him. It's just like a whole big chunkier class. And while, I did kind of say that I didn't love the idea of a college bat at 43, and I didn't think they were going to double up on college pitching. So like a prep of some sort made sense. They just like have to be right for once. I mean, there's second round history, like we don't have to get into, but it's not good.
Yeah. So one thing that I will say, one thing that the guy that the Tigers ended up drafting, my guy, Bryce Rayner.
I think he signed today too, like 5.8, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, of course he did. So one thing that the main reason why I didn't like him is I just felt like maturity with him was going to be a major question. It was going to be one of those things that's going to possibly slow him down. I mean, it may not, and I don't mean to be one of those, gatekeepers to traditional old school baseball, one of the red ass angry guys that gets mad about people flipping bats. That's not what I'm necessarily getting on about. It's more about like just the attitude I see from him. Caleb Bonnemer is not that. Seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulder. If you guys have not checked out our buddy Joe Doyle, who we've had on here a couple of times, he did an interview with Caleb Bonnemer, which is top notch. So if you got some time when you're done here, go check it out. It's a good listen, and you get to hear about his varied approach depending on the count and stuff. It's just like good stuff to hear from a young guy, to hear that he's got a nice mature approach to how he's handling his bat. So kind of good.
And you're never going to believe this, but his high school coach had a lot of nice things to say when he talked to Elijah too. Yeah.
That's shocking stuff right there.
Yeah.
Okemos
High School in
Michigan. Yeah. Who just hit that one? Is that Willie Taveras? Oh, geez. Second home run, second solo shot. Blake Larson, 6'3", projectable. He's hitting 96. And he has that. And if you also notice, there was kind of a theme with the pitchers that they were picking in this draft is funky arm slots.
All of them.
Yeah. So he's another one of those guys. He's got a low 3/4 left-handed delivery, which is going to be, again, one of those guys who's throwing from behind, almost behind a left-handed hitter. So
right.
Pretty
Iowa prep. So another Midwestern kid went to IMG. So they were very familiar with him. He's another guy that was on their area codes team.
All right.
So those guys we all kind of talked about last week as it happened. After that, I will say, like, day 2 was interesting for me, right? And Nick McLain, like, I knew who Nick McLain was. He just hurt a ton, broke both hammates, kind of a tweener. So if you hate that tweener profile, like, I totally understand, like, not liking this guy. His brother's pretty good. It's a good baseball family. Like, Mike Shirley talked about that a lot, about how he's like the younger brother thing. He said the same thing about Taylor last year. It's just really good, competitive family. Apparently he really turned it on down the stretch for Arizona State. He like tapped into his power this year. While he's like small, he's like 5'10". He's not really a center fielder. He's more of a corner, but he does have a right field arm. So, I feel like people are going to have like Dominic Fletcher, like, stamped in their head for this one, but I think he's like a little, I mean, I kind of thought like more athletic Ian Happ type, maybe, which is similar. And, I get it, right? Like if he's not going to be a 30 home run guy, like a lot of people don't want him in an outfield corner. Like, and I get that, right? But I think they
Yeah.
just like this player and how versatile he is, a switch hitter. So, I thought that one was kind of interesting. I know you like the next one a little bit, Salky.
Yeah. Casey Saki, right fielder out of Virginia. Big power. Dude has like some nice exit velocities. Now, and I understand that you have to be able to barrel the ball to generate the exit velocities. He put up some good numbers at Virginia, and there is some opinions out there that he was the best guy on the Virginia team. So, and in high school he played in the infield, and some people have said that he could slot in at second base, possibly. Interesting thought. I don't know what the White Sox plans for him are, but if you go and check out some of his highlights, there's some massive, dingers. So
it's right-handed power. He really has an understanding of the strike zone. He can play both corners. So the area scout I spoke with a little bit because I was just curious. Like the White Sox don't really take guys that struggled with wood. He had a lot of Cape Cod experience, not much success. And they just kind of said he was all out of whack as a sophomore, and they thought that last year he made some changes to his swing that really allowed him to take off. And they kind of think that the issues with wood were more of that, like timing, swing related, than he can't hit with wood. So we'll find out because he'll probably be in Kannapolis in like a few weeks. So he's a right-handed hitter, can play both corners. They really like this guy. I mean, they obviously they paid him like 800 and some thousand, which is the equivalent of like a late third rounder, and they took him for a mid third rounder, and they took him in the early fourth. So, they definitely came up with some sort of deal, to get him, and they put a third round value on the player. So, this is a guy that's a serious part of this draft class. Like I had people tell me like, oh, a 4-player draft is like not great. And I'm like, no, the White Sox don't feel that way at all. Like, regardless of like what we think about, like, we can look at MLB Pipeline or like, oh, they took bums or whatever. Like the White Sox think those 3 college bats and what, 4, 5, and 6, no, 3, 4, and 5 are significant parts of this draft that are going to be like players for them. So, now we find out whether or not they're right. The guys over at Baseball Prospectus had Casey Saki as the number 53 overall player in the draft class. I haven't seen him that high anywhere else. It was usually like, in the hundreds somewhere. I think a couple had him in the 70s, whatever. But McLain was all over the board too at publications.
So with the sixth round choice, Sam Antonasi, fifth, Sam Antonasi. So when I saw him come off the board, I was like, this is like a mixture of Mario Camilletti and Zach Remillard, like kind of mashed into one.
Yeah.
Great zone awareness and approach at the plate. Contact first guy, pretty good fielder.
Yeah, apparently like multiple infield spots too. So Mike Shirley mentioned how when he was coming out of Heartland the year before, they couldn't afford him. They like wanted him out of JUCO, and he decided to go to Coastal instead. So they did pay this kid. They paid him $575,000, which is significantly over slot. So they paid him like a 4th rounder. So you and I kind of talked about this earlier. So he was the JUCO Player of the Year in 2023 for Heartland. He led them to a national championship, batted .515, which is crazy. Drove in 103, scored 105 runs, had 106 hits with 32 doubles, on base percentage of .618. He also finished 6th in slugging with a .903 slugging, and hit 14 homers with 33 stolen bases. So obviously
that's the difference right there. Is
like it's JUCO. The power. That's like not. Yeah, it's like Mario Camilletti, like on Barry Bonds' steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's also a Springfield, Illinois kid who played at Springfield Sacred Heart Griffin High School. So, they love their local guys, obviously. So this is another one that they had tracked for a while. He was a favorite of J.J. Lally in the Midwest. And then he transferred and obviously went into like a different territory for Coastal Carolina. But like Coastal Carolina's produced some big leaguers, and they just good hitters out of there. Mike Shirley, that's another thing he talked about, was just some of the power programs that he picks from. And I didn't do the research, but there's a ton of guys in the last 5 drafts from, like just this time he went Arizona State, Virginia, Coastal Carolina, with these big ones. And then even some of the perceived money saver picks are from big programs too.
Yeah. Speaking of, actually, I don't want to skip over. Is it Appel?
I think it's Apple.
Okay, Jackson Apple. All right, fair enough. Catcher out of Texas A&M.
So this is, sorry, and I don't want to cut you off, but this is one. This is one where I'm like, oh, this is $20K. So they gave him like $125,000. So Shirley talked on the Zoom call about calling his or he's really tight with the new coach at Texas A&M, Michael Early. Michael Early was an Indiana kid who, like, Mike Shirley was his batting coach. So he thought that he got like real good information from him, just with like, this is just a winner leadership type kid. Kind of reminds me a little bit of your guy, Michael Turner, a little bit. Just, I don't know that he's ever a big leaguer, but if he provides value to all your young pitchers, like throughout the minors, that's a worthwhile pick here. If it's worth $120,000.
Yeah. I thought, the fact that he came in that far under slot, I was like, okay, well, that's, at least getting a little bit of money back here, especially seeing, some of these guys, starting to creep above that. And I was,
well, he was an Ivy too before. He was Penn, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it was 4 years at Penn. It's one of the Ivies. Yeah.
Then you've got Phil Fox, who Dylan Barnas loves.
Yeah.
Our guy at Not Cease on Twitter, his favorite guy is Phil Fox.
Yeah. So the area scout really liked this guy apparently too, pitching in the ACC. The flat fastball apparently. So I don't know.
Yeah, throw 99 miles an hour, but flat. We saw, I'm not projecting and saying that this is what's going to happen, but we saw Zach Birdie, who also threw 103 miles an hour into a flat fastball. Yeah. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know, but he ends up going 95,000 under slot, which is another one of those things.
And it's still a lot more money than I thought he was going to get initially. Like, I thought these guys were all your typical senior signs, and they're not. Even like Aaron Combs for $250K, they paid like 7th round money. I had heard there were some area scouts that had him in like as high as the 5th round. I know you had said that he pitched well for Tennessee down the stretch. I think it's a definite reliever profile, but that's fine. These guys, some of these guys could move quickly in the White Sox system in a reliever profile.
Yeah. Starting pitching right now is kind of juiced, especially, with some of these guys that they're bringing up from the DSL who are, doing fairly decent. Like you've got Ricardo Brizuela, who pitched for, gave up like 10 runs in his first inning the first time he pitched. But
he's been good since, yeah.
Yeah, but last time he came out, he looked fantastic. So if they can keep on, bringing guys like that, and Frank Kelly, Arias coming around and throwing shutout ball, you have to, fill the system with as much as you can. And if something we've all surmised is that they're going to use some of this pitching to try and get some bats into this system, which, oof.
Well, it's one thing they didn't really do. So they added, obviously, with their first round pick, Hagen is a big piece, right? But they didn't take a bunch of college starters. They took 1 in 14 in Justin Sinibaldi of Rutgers, who's your typical like college like back end type lefty, similar to we've had some success. Who's
Shane Murphy?
Well, yeah. So him, and then even Lucas Gordon. He's not that different than Lucas Gordon. Lucas Gordon went in the 6th round last year, but And then Mason Moore out of Kentucky has been in multiple roles, but the White Sox see him more as a starter. So there's those two and Smith that could be added to the mix here at affiliates, but it's not like they have 10 college starters to add to the mix because it was a clear place where they don't have any place for these guys to pitch, which is why I think they focused on some high upside relief pitching and some guys that they like some pitch characteristics on and stuff like that. And then they drafted position players.
Yeah. So it's the guy we passed over here. Let's see. Jack Young
Jack
out of
Young.
Iowa.
And he gets 7,500. Like, I'm sure there's like a pitch or something that an area scout likes. These are two super low senior signings. And then the 10th round outfielders, what?
Cole McConnell,
yeah. So he was like suspended last year for something to do with team rules. I mean, the White Sox added 5 outfielders in this draft. So my guess is he's at Arizona.
Well, he's a Warren Hughes guy. So
yeah, like, so he's at Arizona and we probably don't see him, is my guess. But I don't know. That one's interesting, And then some of the day 3 picks are obviously more interesting than some of the day 2 picks, just because like you can pay these guys $150,000. 11th is always interesting. They didn't go over on this guy though, Blake Shepardson. Okay, his name comes across, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I got nothing for you. Like, people are messaging me on Twitter. I'm like, I don't know. He's a big right-hander from San Francisco, and it's another kind of thing that we talked about. He hasn't been that good. So the coaches at San Francisco just like wouldn't throw him because they needed to win baseball games. But he's got like 2 potential plus pitches and a huge fastball that's like touches 100 and a nasty slider. So I guess he's pitched in this MLB draft league and he's been unbelievable. And Shirley saw him in person. The White Sox spent their 11th round pick on him and gave him $150K. My guess is we will see him in Kannapolis. And we'll see. I mean, there's been guys like this before who could just like never get the command and order and they never turn into anything. But I mean, in this pitching development system, like I'm okay with taking guys like this and Pierce George and seeing if you can unearth high leverage relievers so that you don't have to pay for them down the road. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. It was University of San Francisco. It's Aaron Pareda.
Yeah. First rounder.
Woo.
Jake Peavy deal.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget when I was at Bears camp when they made the Jake Peavy trade. And remember, like, Mike
Kenny
Mulligan was always. And he found a way to trade like terrible prospects every year too. It's like the White Sox had the 27th ranked farm system in baseball, and Kenny would like acquire a guy at the deadline somehow every time.
Yeah. Snake oil salesman,
Yeah. I swear Aaron Parade is good. Just take it.
Yeah. First round. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Nathan Archer out of Bowling Green. Signed for $150K. I don't even know what was the slot on that.
150
round 12, 150.
So everything on day 3.
Oh, right. Everything on day 3. Right.
Everything on day 3 is 150K. You don't have to pay that, but you can pay up to 150K, and it doesn't count against your bonus pool. So obviously, then if you pay a guy 200K, 50K counts against the pool. So this is a guy who I thought might be over. He's pretty interesting. He was a MAC player of the year at Bowling Green, power and speed, and like a 6'4" center fielder. So again, I mean, we're talking about, and I know you and I kind of talked about this. We were texting like the other day, or it might have been today. I don't know. But like, if you send McLain and Sauke and this guy all to Kannapolis, I mean, you got George there. You got 2 young DSL prospects that are there that are both playing well. Like, I don't know that there's playing time for everybody. Maybe some of these guys go right to Winston. Maybe they just go hang out in Arizona. I don't really know. But adding college players and adding outfielders specifically, like, seems like an area of focus. I mean, this is a guy that could play an A-ball right now. I mean, he was the best player in the MAC. So
yeah, another guy just like that, a guy that you could probably send straight to A-ball is TJ McCants.
Yeah,
same thing. Out of Alabama, was an Ole Miss guy. The year before, transferred in the portal. He could be another one of those guys. He's got some sneaky power, fast, good outfielder.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw, so like on the Zoom call after Mike Shirley said that, so he mentioned Paul Janisch. This
Mhm.
year was a little bit different. So Mike Shirley mentioned like all these different members of the organization, and he doesn't typically do this. So Paul Janisch is the new farm director. Paul Janisch like had watched McCants or knew him because when he was at Rice, he like
Yeah,
knew him
Rice.
just from being
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the college game.
Mhm.
So Paul Janisch is convinced that they can turn, or he just thinks, he has a hunch that they can turn TJ McCants into a super utility player because he must have some infield in his past too. So he's going to play both, like with the White Sox. So I don't know if that means maybe he is a candidate to stay in Arizona and just kind of see, how that goes, or if he go right to Canny. But he was primarily an outfielder at both stops in college, I believe. But they're going to play him all over the place,
Hmm.
and he's pretty.
Interesting.
I mean, he's pretty interesting. He's like a fun. It kind of reminds me of like it's not the same type of player, but it's the same type of impact as like a Terrell Tatum. Like just you know,
Yeah.
that's a guy
Multi-
that we've had fun watching for years. I mean, TJ McCants could be a guy that we're talking about like a year from now because he's good at Winston Salem, and what
yeah.
he ultimately becomes, like I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see.
But he's like had high level success at premium college programs, like
Yeah.
on winning teams.
Yeah, they kept on accepting him as he moved up through the portal, so, good for him. So this one this next one is my favorite. Um just because of what could be. I mean, I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen, but Lyle Miller Green, who has, if you have not read up on this guy, insane story. He was adopted when he was one in Russia, and he's been living here and with his adopted family ever since. Um, Dude hits 500-foot home runs fairly regularly, just massive power. Put up big numbers at Austin Pay. You got anything other than that to mention about him, other than he's a sleeper KGB agent?
Well, Mike Shirley said he has the most power in the entire draft outside of Jack Caglione. Now he's old. I think he's 24. He doesn't really necessarily. I don't know. He's kind of been described to me as somebody who doesn't have a defensive position, but like he's played some outfield. He's played first. This is the funny part.
He's a two-way player.
So they listed him as a two-way player. Did you hear why?
No.
Because Brian Bannister has watched him and likes some of like the things that he does on the mound.
Interesting.
That's why. Which to me, like I think you just like send him to like high A Winston Salem and just like watch him hit tanks because like I think that would be fun. This
See
is
if
the
he
same.
can turn him into Rick Ankiel.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same type
With
of
control.
thing. Like, this is not a guy that we're going to rank on top 30 prospect lists. But the natives of North Carolina are going to love him.
Probably.
Like, because
Yeah,
he's
they're gonna
just
have a lot of fun with this dude.
he's just hulking and just hits absolute nukes, which they don't have enough guys that do that. So doing this in the 17th round is interesting. And he's played at like 5 different schools in 5 years. Like this story is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I mean, I'm really hoping for success for this dude because it's such a bizarre story. So Liam Paddock out of Gonzaga.
Yeah, so he got like they paid him over. So this is a guy. This is like one of like if you made us, if we stack the class, and I haven't done it by bonus yet, just because I don't have the first 3 or the 3 of the first 4. I mean, they paid him what you get
172.
Yeah, so 22.5 counts against the pool means they kind of like this guy. I know I don't know how hard he throws. I don't remember. I know that Elijah and Dylan like kind of talked about this guy, but it's a lot of strikeouts. Lefty reliever profile with like a bunch of strikeouts out of Gonzaga. So yeah, this is another guy who, between him and Phil Fox and Aaron Combs and Blake Shepardson and Pierce George, I mean, it's 5 relievers that could move fairly quickly. And while there's no space in the White Sox minors for starting pitchers, there's plenty of space for relief pitchers.
There's always room for relievers. And then I'm just gonna say he's the last pick because
Yeah,
Myles Bailey doesn't count. as much as I'd love for him to be on the
that
White
that
Sox,
would be great. Yes.
yeah, that would be one of those high school signings that I would have been like,
Right.
perfect. Nick Pinto, an anteater of UC Irvine. He gets 25. So
yeah, I was surprised that Elijah didn't know this guy personally. I was like, come on, man, drive over to Irvine.
He's UC Santa Barbara.
I know, but it's UC. I mean, drive over and
just right down the street.
Yeah, that's fine. He should know everybody from out there.
Yeah, I mean, he should have like profiles on all these guys. He should be living around there.
Well, yeah. So I mean, like, what? Yeah. Well, there's that. So I mean, we kind of talked about like relievers, priority, outfielders. They love low slot lefties. Mike Shirley now in 5 drafts. Lefty, shortstop, lefty, shortstop, lefty. So yeah, I mean, if Hagen Smith is good, and the 3 pitchers that you took in the first round are Garrett, Crochet, Hagen Smith, and Noah Schultz, it's pretty good. He should maybe just keep taking left-handed starters.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like their evaluation process seems to be fairly good from the pitching side. I mean, last year they 13th round of what was it? 13th round they took Shane Murphy, and then 14th round was Mason Adams.
Yeah,
doing fairly decent here.
Yeah,
for
I mean
themselves.
Mason and here's the thing.
Not last year,
like,
but
I mean, when the White Sox took Mason Adams, I don't know who Mason Adams was. I had no idea. I mean, there was stuff out there. Like as soon as they took Brooks Baldwin, who's now in the big leagues, by the way. Like you start looking on Twitter and all these people are tweeting because he was like a scout favorite. This guy plays everywhere. He was great on the Cape, like blah, blah, blah. Like that stuff didn't exist for Mason Adams. And he's awesome.
It did not.
And he's awesome. So, I mean, like if Mason Moore from Kentucky, who was highly regarded, just like figures it out and all of a sudden he's good too. Like it shouldn't be a surprise. You find guys on day 3. Like this happens. Like this is a thing, So yeah, so they've done a pretty good job there. And then so the White Sox have signed quite a few undrafted guys too. I think there were 2. Like I could pull up the list possibly if I could find it. But so Zach Eblin is ranked on the BA top 500 in like 330, something like that. So I feel like he should just be considered a draft pick. So that's like another college shortstop from Bama. That's a pretty interesting player. Another guy that had a big year that I'm surprised didn't get taken. I was kind of surprised was Makarovitz. Is he NC? He's like one of the North Carolina schools, I believe.
Wasn't UNC Wilmington?
I don't think it, but no. So it was an ACC kid. I'd have to look and see. I can't remember, but I think he might be an NC State guy. But he hit 380 with 50 extra base hits in the ACC and 24 homers.
Oh, you talking about the third baseman from
NC State? From NC State. So I mean, he hit 24 homers and a 380 average at NC State. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's just another guy who's gonna like get added to this mix here. Like when he's playing at Kannapolis, like that's where he came from. So just kind of.
And I mean, of course, it doesn't surprise me that he didn't go in the draft, but a guy named Cleat. I love a guy named Cleat.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead and sign a guy like that.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So I've heard from a lot of people that are like underwhelmed by this class.
Everybody's underwhelmed by the class.
I get, Well, I mean, that and I think like the White Sox class, like people were expecting more because they talk kind of like how important this draft was for them. Mike Shirley was definitely like he was very gracious with his time. He answered everything, but you could tell that he was like kind of aggravated, and he seemed aggravated over just the process and NIL and negotiating, and just it sounds like it sucks. But it's the job, and I think he kind of knows that. and I think they're big fans of, obviously, like we've talked about, like those college picks on day 2. They like what they did on day 1. They took some flyers on relievers late because it's just what they were able to do. So, it's $15.3 million in bonus pool space. They have to be right at this point. Do you have any just main takeaways from the draft class? Is it, I think it's always different than what you're anticipating, but I mean, it all makes sense once you hear them talk about what they think of guys like Sauki and Antanasi and those guys. Because at first blush, I'm like, okay, these guys are underslot college guys. There's a big swing coming, right? And then the big swing doesn't come, and you realize that all these guys are overslot signings that they basically probably made deals with to secure all the players in the draft class that they like the most.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they took some swings on some guys, and they identified some guys that could bump some of the guys that they have out of the system. And I think it's obviously, other than we know that this organization is kind of lacking in outfield depth. It's not what we would like it to be. And I feel like they took some of those guys to try and replenish it and try and find a guy that's going to be a guy, so they're just taking some big shots, and with the guys that they're paying up top, they're taking some risk with it, with a Bonham being a prep guy. But if you're going to take a prep guy, he's one of the kind of guys that you're going to want to take, that you're going to want to take a shot on. And then they took Hagen Smith because they feel like they can probably maximize what he does.
For sure.
Because there wasn't a hitter that they felt that was a guy that they couldn't screw up. You know what I'm saying? So
Nathan just commented on it. So Callis did just report it. So Caleb Bonham is getting $3 million, which is
$3 million,
$800,000 over slot.
So that leaves them with what, 8.5?
They got plenty. So he gets $3 million. No, so they're at 8.8. So my guess is
Hagen's going to get 7.8.
Slot for Hagen is 7.7. Boris will probably get 1.1 because
he'll probably get 1.1, and then
because then there's all your money. So that kind of explains a lot. So before we get off, then let me look at just the bonus pools.
Do you know this, James?
What? I know I should memorize them all, right? So once did
you see this? Is there a place where we can listen to the Shirley interview? I mean, we have it, but I haven't seen it anywhere.
If they put it, I'd have to check the press box site and see if they put it on there. I don't know that they did.
Yeah, I don't know if they did either. I'll take a look.
Okay, so $3 million is right between pick 29 and pick 30. So the Diamondbacks pick at 29 is worth $3,045,500. So they paid Bonham a first round pick.
Yeah.
So they
very low, but yeah, right.
So they think this is equivalent to the 29th pick in the draft money for Caleb Bonham. So yeah, so I mean, he better be good, right? It gives you an indication.
They did put it on there.
Westcath is 1.8 million. Okay. Yeah, so maybe I don't know, Ian, I don't know if it's too much trouble for you to put it in the chat, how people can access that, but
I don't know if you can, because we need the credentials to get in there to get to it. So
I thought they had a generic to read it, to listen to it, but
you figure they would have to put it somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, so all right, so that's interesting. So then the only unsigned right now are Hagen Smith and Nick McLain, but I think we kind of know where the money's going. Yeah, I mean, $3 million's very significant And I can't really say whether it's good or bad. I mean, that's like, I don't even know what Colson Montgomery's, I feel like Colson Montgomery's bonus was like 3 million something,
Yeah.
but draft pools are up so high. I mean, they had to buy him out of his college commitment, and they did.
Whoa. Oh, that was loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find to see if there's if the interview is anywhere on YouTube, and I do not see it. So I don't know.
A lot of times, yeah, like it'll get like recorded or whatever. But
Yeah, I find it kind of strange that they didn't put any of it anywhere, because I was looking for it before we got it, before you got it, and I couldn't find it. And then they didn't put it on their site even until just a couple days ago. So, so before we get out of here, the trade deadline's coming real soon.
yeah, I feel like we might be doing like breaking news episodes at any point.
Yeah, I mean,
I know you're like a working human. I'm a kind of a bum because it's July
right now. Yeah, what do we got?
Like,
Is it first? It's August 1st, right?
No, it's the 30th. So it's next.
Oh, it is the 30th.
It's next Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll be on before then. So I guess we'll probably get into.
We could have a deal. We could have a deal or two by then, but
we'll probably at least get something before then. So
I feel
we'll
like
probably
Fetty,
be on again.
So Fetty started tonight, and then he starts again. I think it was announced like on the weekend, maybe Friday
or Saturday.
Yeah, and then
Saturday,
first day goes like Sunday, I think, again. So, yeah, I know John Heyman was on earlier talking about how Luis Robert makes sense for the Dodgers. That's a kind of depleted system right now. So, I mean, the issue for me with the Dodgers is like, I would want all of their super young prospects, and I feel like that's not what the White Sox are looking for, so we'll see.
Referee wants Crochet to go to the Yankees.
I don't.
I do not either.
I don't want that.
I don't want any of that Spencer Jones stuff. If that's what you're insinuating, referee. I think James and I are both on that train of not wanting that guy. You got anything else important that you would like to bring up this week?
No, I'm a bum. It's fine, Doug. It's okay. I mean, I'm kind of like coaching football, but no, not really. I mean, trade deadline is nuts. I'm gonna try to write something just like an all-encompassing like draft piece on all these guys. Our Dan Victor is going to speak to like all of the area scouts, do a similar piece to what he wrote last year for you guys over at Daily. He's going to do that for us here so look, we're going to keep writing about the draft, even though it's over. And then I'll research next year's draft, where the White Sox have the 10th pick. I think that's pretty much locked in at this point.
Yeah, I'd say that's a safe bet.
And the first pick in every other round.
Yeah, I don't think that you would. I think you're going to get very terrible odds if you go and try and place a bet on where they're going to be drafting next year. You're going to get bad odds.
Oh yeah, they're picking 10.
Yeah,
it's a really loaded draft class apparently, though, because, yeah, the high school class is good, so that's generally what happens.
Nice. Must be nice to live 10 minutes away from a minor league park. I used to, and then they contracted.
Yeah, that's fun. Hey, I guess one more thing before we go. I didn't really like want to get into this, and obviously, like, I'm not like watching the big league team that often, but like, this is like more harm than good at this point. I think with this manager, like, this is not good. Matt Spiegel reported like on the radio yesterday on Hit and Run that he had heard that Pedro Grifol has been like, he's basically alienated all the veterans on the club. Like, they're all mad and they're all going to get traded, so it's fine. But he's doing the whole thing where it's like, hey, do you guys want to be known as the worst team in the league? Like that sort of thing, and having them do extra stuff and, like
do wind sprints and run stairs.
Like they're out doing extra, and it's like, okay. So I don't know. I haven't seen that anywhere else. Like Matt Spiegel kind of reported it and kind of said like some of the vets are just totally tuned this guy out for being the doofus that he is, which is not surprising to me. But I mean, if August and September is going to look like what we kind of anticipate it looking like, I don't know. These will be our discussions, I guess, for future weeks. But like, does it do you more harm than good to like have this person around these people that matter? You know,
yes, it does.
Yeah.
I've been of that opinion the entire time. I mean, I heard when Brooks Baldwin came in, Pedro threw him his keys and told him to go wash his car.
Yeah. Well, Well, I mean, Moncada's like with the team. So is Brooks going back down?
I don't understand what I don't understand what they're doing right now. I'm trying to process that.
Maybe they're just like in the process of trading Paul DeJong or something, and then it makes more sense. But
I mean, I guess, but I mean, like Yohan Moncada, he played in the ACL and then he got reinstated. Like I just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, he and Clevenger are both ready. I mean, here's the thing. Like at this point, if you're the White Sox, like you hope those guys are good enough to get claimed on waivers and save the money, the rest of whatever you're owed. So like Moncada's going to play. They don't have a choice. I mean, they're going to buy him out, but like he's going to play the rest of the year just because they want him to be good enough to where like Dave Dombrowski wants him for free, you know, like it's.
Yeah, I had my hopes when the season started that we would possibly have some sort of trade chips out of
Moncada,
at least out of Yohan. Yeah, I mean, even if they ate salary, you know, just to give him a shot to do something. But it also the thing that needed to happen was for him to be healthy and play halfway decent. And he started to play halfway decent, but he couldn't stay healthy. So that's unfortunate.
He's going to like win the World Series this year somehow with someone.
Hey, I hope so.
You know,
because I want to see another romper video, you know, some sort of, oh, hey, Danny, how you doing? We were just talking about your guy, McLain earlier and you weren't here. My apologies.
Is he not a fan?
No, he likes him a lot.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. Yeah. Moncada stays hurt. That's right. That's about all we got for this week.
Yep. I think we're done. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, there's if you guys have not been paying attention to FutureSox.net or our Twitter at FutureSox, there has been so much content in the last 2 weeks. I can't even begin to rattle it all off, but there is so much draft content between the draft profiles for a ton of guys, which obviously most of them you don't care about, but Hagen Smith is in there, so you can go if you are interested in reading up on our new left-handed monster that was just drafted in the first round. You can do that. Sleepy Herald publishes a article every week called Trending on the Farm, where you can hear about all of the awesome performances in the farm system in the last week. Thank you, referee. Appreciate that so much. Thank you for the super chat. There's lists of all the things that are going on for the White Sox affiliates. Elijah and Jeff do a podcast every week called The Roundup, which we'll also be releasing here within the next 2 days. They recorded earlier today. Ours will go out tomorrow. I think theirs will probably go out possibly on Wednesday. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe we'll do a double release. I don't know. And then Danny, who's in the comments, along with Nick Morawski from Good Guys Talk Back, they do hot takes and heaters every Tuesday night, live here on the YouTube. You can find this in podcast form. What about our videos? Oh, the videos also on our YouTube page. Feel free every night that there is a minor league game. There are I splice up all the highlights and everything and put them up on our YouTube page. So feel free to go on there, hop up, and like and subscribe, please.
And then you and I are back later this week with Peter Flaherty too.
Yes, and we will be on with Peter Flaherty. I forgot about that. That will be probably what we're releasing on Friday morning.
Yeah, we're recording Thursday night, not live. So yeah, Friday morning.
All right. There will also be that. So for myself, Ian Eskridge at Daily White Sox. He is James Fox at JamesFox917. We appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. And we will catch up with you guys next week.